think that it's a good thing that we are lacking time and all that, because I didn't get to prepare. I got really busy in the last days, and well, I think we confirmed on Monday that there was going to be the presentation. So I don't have anything really actually prepared, but I wanted to talk about what I had to change for my script for Leak 2.0. But I think that we can make it an exchange more than that. Like, if people want to actually talk or give feedback about what they felt like upgrading, and what maybe sets you back and prevents you from actually updating. In general, for what I had to do, most of my scripts, the simplest one, were able to migrate to 2.0, like just minor changes in the syntax and stuff. And I must say that I didn't have any actual issue with migrating on the simpler one. On the more complex one, I had a lot of things to change, not necessarily because they were not working anymore. I could maybe show something, I don't know. Guess we have a documentation that you guys did on the migration. I think it's on the head of the page. I'm just gonna link it there. And what I had working was some things that were added and not necessarily by in the core. So that probably rings a bell for Sam, because I think that you are the one who wrote it. And it's actually quite in theme with the discussions we had about PlayGen and other tools that are specialized into trying to build playlist that doesn't repeat and has some constraints in there. And so maybe someone is going to know what I'm talking about. Do you know what new operator I'm talking about? I'm going to give a few hints. This operator is one that allows you to play with the check next feature of playlist. And I actually think we already talked about that one. So who wants to? Yeah. Well, you wrote it, so you know. I was not too much of a stretch of your brain, hopefully. So what's the problem of tools like PlayGen tries to address was, I want to have my playlist play as randomly as possible, but I don't want things to repeat themselves. So there are quite some constraints. And as Romain said a lot earlier, and so did Samuel and all, it's probably not Liquidsoap's role to do that, to actually decide on how not to repeat stuff. But at least what you can do inside Liquidsoap's playlist operator is making sure that if someone is obviously not something you want to play, just discard it or change. Nice, Buster. So yeah, what you would do is use the playlist operator. I'm just going to put it in the chat, and you would put a function called check next, and this function will get the next request to be played by the playlist, and it will decide whether or not it needs to be played, or it's actually allowed to play. And so, of course, you can request PlayGen or any other tool to, or AzureCast, to just tell, all right, can I play this? Can I play? What should I play next? And whatever is proposed shouldn't violate these constraints. So yeah, the playlog operator is quite nice, because what I did before with playlist is that checknext would use a data structure, and I would be able to store things using the the list data structure in Liquidsoap. And for those who are using lists in 1.4, and that's actually something that's great, it was quite annoying because you had to have kind of OCaml way. I guess it came from OCaml. Maybe Samuel or Romain can tell me. And you had to do like a lot of operators that you would assume are working out of the box on lists were not quite available. So you had to work with first, second, tail, head, and stuff like that on the list. And it's not so natural for people like me that come from Python and are not that good developers. So the 2.0 version actually changed a little bit of this, and it's a lot easier to work with associative arrays, like dictionaries in Python. And so it's really great to have that. Thank you guys, because it makes everything very much more of a breeze to actually write. And if your code is dealing with FST, SND, NTH, or whatever other things that you think are kind of weird to you, well, just rewrite them using 2.0. It's going to be easier. It doesn't. It's not broken, but it's going to be better. And I think, at least to me, a little bit easier to comprehend. So, and what Samuel did here is he kind of used the data structure that was you would just initialize when you start your stream, and every time you play something, you will call its add function. So that's actually a nice addition that is also from the 2.0 version. It's the functions that you can call on I'd say an object. I think you say module. Again, Samuel or Romain, if you're willing to correct what I'm saying. And so that's really easy because you initialize it and it takes care by itself of adding things in there and storing them. And because I'm really picky and I'm annoying, I say, oh, if I want to store that, because if I restart Liquidsoap, we talked about what happens if we have to restart Liquidsoap, because now we do have to restart it every time we change the actual overall logic of it. And so of course, if I do restart the stream, I don't want a repetition there, so I need to have some kind of persistence. And so yeah, well, because of the structure and because of the nice code related to JSON functionality in Liquidsoap, it's really easy to just say, oh, I just write this JSON file somewhere on the disk, and then you can just, when you start over, restart the file from the same JSON and know what happens. Yeah. So so playlog, and I don't really have an example there. I wouldn't dare to do it live, but because of this, you can have your playlog output to JSON and you do whatever you want. But what you can do is to call it every time you call check next and say, all right, I have already played that. And what I do usually in there, it's not specific to the 1.4. Yeah. And in 1.4, I already did something like that. It was like, I'm going to try to find another track to play, because you cannot play that one because it's forbidden for every reason. The challenge you have in this situation is that you want randomness so that your script doesn't get too complicated. Constraints satisfaction is something that is really hard, especially for radio. So I just do random, because random is always the easiest way you can do. But you could again pick a song that was already played a little bit earlier. So I had to make some kind of exit strategy and say, like, if you missed like 20 times in a row and you can't find a new track to play, it doesn't matter, just repeat one and so be it, and just do some kind of notification and stuff. All right. So do use playlog with check next, and then you can also make it a lot easier not to repeat things. Even though in that situation, if you use the playlog, the only information you're using is the file name or maybe some kind of checksumming. So it's not as precise as PlayJane would do it, because it's trying to make sure that you don't actually play the same artist or the same song from this artist. I just don't play twice the same file name. So that's kind of it needs to be improved probably, but it's actually a good security against repeating stuff. All right. The other main things, I'm going to switch to those because everything pretty much is discussed in the document about migrating from 1.4. The one that's not necessarily obvious is audio.
If you want an example of a playlog, I have just shared.
That is nice. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was saying. You're quick, or it's in the book maybe. Yeah. Oops. It stopped. So
sorry, I have to share again. Sorry.
Yeah, you can actually buy the book, and I'm not sure how much money you're making off the book, but I bought one just.
Okay, so it's not working anymore, but it's in the book. I can find it. I will post the link to the GitHub.
Good. And the book is actually quite great. It's a good complement to the documentation because you're kind of more like workflow oriented and explaining a lot of things. And I do actually refer a lot to the book when I actually migrated, because not only did I wanted the syntax to be right, but I wanted to make sure that I used the new features of the language, and there are quite many of them. So it's quite good. So yeah, well, to make this short, the next thing I'm using, and that's something that I didn't use Liquidsoap for, is what we call in French a pige, which is like the archive recording of your audio stream. There's a really well-known tune that's written by a French guy as well, that's quite old and unmaintained, that's called Cpige. Cpige, or in French, but I don't know how English people would pronounce it by default. It's called Cpige in French. And this tool is quite old, and I wanted to do the same with Liquidsoap because of the way, well, I know a lot of Liquidsoap, so that was good. And so you couldn't do it before, and that's not the reason why it was included in Liquidsoap. The reason was to avoid re-encoding audio or video streams, to avoid the computing power needed to do that. So the the idea was that to do that, we had to make sure that we could decode, of course, things out of a file or out of stream, and instead of actually re-encode it using the Liquidsoap internal frames, just dump them into a file, which is not correct. Usually for files, it's not really correct to do that, but for MP3, which is really like lenient, and well, it makes things easy. And so same goes for WAV or PCM files. So you can just drop them, and the player is going to figure out how to play them, and it's going to be nice because you don't add any overhead into, and you're making sure that you're saving exactly what the HTTP stream or audio stream is all about. So that's a nice one. And again, there's an example that is quite easy in the book, if I remember correctly. But the way I use it for that is I plug Liquidsoap to any HTTP stream that I want to record, and I use audio copy to dump the exact, say, MP3 stream, and then I have my my thing. And with the parameter of output.file, you can do pretty much whatever you want. That is, add any kind of timestamps in that, and I actually uncovered a bug while I was doing this, because this is directly using FFmpeg if you're using that as a format. So it's well, you have to use it if you want to do audio dot copy. And actually, I still have a problem with that in some kind of situations, but I might do a bug report if I actually can reproduce my findings. And that's something that's really recent, and I can thank a friend of mine for that work, is that I have a few issues with IPv6 streaming, and I'm pretty sure it's getting fixed quite soon in release. But that's maybe something Romain wants to talk about, or maybe not. And sorry that I didn't actually prepare the examples and all for that. I want to say that I'm really I enjoyed this afternoon for us, this old Liquidshop, and it was really nice to see a lot of people that we knew beforehand or not, and it was really great to be able to discuss and to see that kind of energy. I'm pretty sure it's cool. Yep, Jeremy is the guy, and he's actually kind of indirectly listening to us at the moment. But thank you, Jeremy. All right. Okay. So yeah, I guess I'm done.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Thank you, Gille, and thank to all the speakers to this who all made this wonderful workshop possible, and also to the listeners. So yeah, it's very nice to see that we have kind of a community building, and that we can talk between each other, from technical people to people who just love to do radio.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see that a lot of people were actually curious about the video. I'm not using it, not because I don't like it, but because I had a lot of troubles, and to me, I was mostly discovering high FFmpeg results with videos. So I'm pretty sure that if we add like 2 or 3 operators in Liquidsoap to make it easier to not re-encode the whole stream, but actually do something useful, that's useful for video streamers, say, I'm pretty sure that we could get something. And I'm thinking, you read the chat, I guess you agree with that. I think we're gonna need to have video show for the next one using Liquidsoap for the next.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe Romain wants to talk about it, but basically it's on the yeah to-do list. So one thing is that Romain wants to rewrite all the format from the frames, which is kind of necessary in order to have a clean semantics of which images are copied or not. So whenever you modify part of the stream, maybe you don't want to have your stream modified over into other parts. And also, I need to do some work to support like overlays. So it means that maybe you so right now, even if you want to add a small logo, then you're computing a huge image which is mostly transparent, and there are only a few relevant pixels, and this takes a huge amount of CPU, and yeah, so there is kind of bit of work to have something which is decently usable. So right now I can barely have one stream on my computer at 720p. So yeah, a bit of work to improve everything. But let's try to do next year's Liquidshop, as it is partly generated by Liquidsoap. Maybe it's a good challenge.